Hey everybody, welcome back to 2 Pixels Off. I am here with Pixel 1, Brad Hussey. I was going to call you Pixel 2, but then I thought, no, I'm going to give him, he's Pixel number 1.
Welcome to 2 Pixels Off, a podcast for creative entrepreneurs.
Pixel number 1.
Nice.
I'll be Pixel number 2.
I'll take it.
It was a little morsel of humility that I just mustered right there before I said it. That's what just happened, all in my brain in that split second. We are glad to be back with you today. We are going to be talking about how to qualify an opportunity. Not every project that you take from a client should be a yes. You shouldn't be sitting around hoping and praying that you get the next project, because sometimes no is the right answer. And we're going to help you understand what goes into that decision, how you qualify a client, how you can understand when to say yes, when to say no, how to protect yourself from those bad projects that tend to come all our way over the course of our creative career.
Yep.
The next little shout out is thank you to Wix Studio for making this podcast possible. By the way, Brad, last week I rebuilt the 2 Pixels Off landing page in Wix Studio. And
nice.
I gotta say, yeah, I had a little bit of learning curve on some of the things that I wanted to do there and some of the embedding and stuff. But once I got past the learning curve, some of the things that really impressed me, and I've dug into it before, but I dug into it a lot more when it was Editor X than since it's been Wix Studio. The responsive capabilities are so easy, so tight. Like once you make desktop version, it's automatically trying to convert things into tablet and phone size versions. But if it doesn't automatically do it spot on, the tweaking is really quite easy. You can size the things, adjust, reverse order and stuff, and it's just tracking everything you want to do, and it works. It works. I was really impressed with that piece of Wix Studio this past week.
That's awesome. And you're right. It's like I've seen, and as I'm sure you have too, when you're designing websites to be responsive, the early days of it was tedious CSS media queries and code.
Yeah.
And obviously you could still do that. That's what's happening behind the scenes. But it can get hairy real fast. And there's so much room for error. And even in the past with drag and drop attempts with responsive design haven't really been a home run for me. But in this case, the way that Wix Studios built this out, it kind of makes it foolproof, where you don't even need to do anything and it's going to scale proportionally. And so your site's just going to work. It's just going to be responsive. You're not going to have some weird like horizontal scroll bars. But if you want to get into it and design a better responsive experience for tablet, for mobile, or for any screen size, you can set your breakpoints as well if you want to. Then you can create a really intuitive and appealing mobile experience. And so I'm glad that you did that. That's really cool.
Yeah. It was a good exercise. I meticulously fiddled with it for like a day. I had an open day, and I don't know. Once I dig into a platform and start really getting into the minutia of it, I'm like, oh, I got to learn this. I got to understand this deeper at a deeper level than what I did before. Okay. Well, we're thankful for Wix Studio for making this podcast possible. Today, we're going to dig into those moments when you say yes or you say no. How do you know? It is not just, cuckoo, I'm going to use my gut. It's just a gut feeling. If I feel like the client is bad, I'm just going to use my gut and say no to the client. It is not that. In fact, almost everything in business is not that. It's not that. You've got to do some sort of analysis and then use intuition based on your analysis, not just the cuckoo gut feeling. That's my southern. Do you like my southern hillbilly accent?
I like the Southern Belle. And Mike Janda, the Southern Belle.
The Southern Belle. Do Southern Bells say cuckoo? Cuckoo.
I don't know if they do. I don't know. I'm so far from the American South that I couldn't even tell you. But I am listening to a couple like Old West kind of novels right now. And so I don't know, maybe maybe you're right.
You
on
know
the
what
money.
you should listen to, and shout out to anybody who has not listened to this podcast. I guess it was super popular like 5 years ago or something. S-Town. Have you ever listened to S-Town podcast?
Nope.
There's a dude, southern dude on there. His voice is so great. His voice is great, and the podcast is really high production quality, really well done storytelling, really good. S-Town.
Really?
Okay, that's if you want to
S-Town.
learn how to talk southern in the USA. That's how you're gonna learn. All right, today, let's talk about, in the first 5 minutes of meat of this podcast, there is a problem with creative business owners that they typically rush the sales process. They're just jumping into it. Client reaches out to them, so new lead. A lot of people, their immediate reaction is, oh, I got to get a proposal ready. And they're skipping stuff that should be happening before they get a proposal ready. So I usually recommend slowing down this sales process. Slowing it down will allow you to be more methodical. It will allow you to charge more money because you're building a higher level of trust with the client through multiple touch points in your sales cycle. And it'll allow you to scope a project methodically so that you don't get screwed in the end. So I think those are three real benefits to slowing down this sales process. Brad, what is the first thing you do when a client, new lead, pops up to you? What do you do?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to tie this in to something I call the barbecue method. And speaking of the American South,
Southern
yeah,
barbecue.
I'm talking like Texas barbecue, low and slow. You want that barbecue real low and slow. And so what you want to do here is, like you said, slow it down. And with the barbecue method, if anyone knows barbecue, smoking brisket on an offset stick burner, the secret is really in the time, the low temperature for a long period of time. And so what you do is you kind of like, you render the fat, and it's just it turns out so good. Whereas if you cook a brisket, which is a really tough meat, quick, so hot and fast, it's tough, it's tight, it's hard to chew, and it's not as good. So the secret really is in that low and slow. So I call it the barbecue.
Let me
method.
interject something, because the barbecue method also needs prep. You got to prep the meat. You got to tenderize it. You got to season it. You got to marinate it overnight or for 5 days or whatever it takes. So there's this whole preparation cycle that really is what makes it. So I love where you're going with this barbecue method. I've never heard this before. Did you make it up? Did you make this up?
I made it up.
This is Southern money. Southern money. That's what this is.
This Northern Canadian boy, like I speak Texas. When it comes to barbecue. I do. Like that brisket, see, we're in the southwest in Canada and Alberta, and we're like kind of like the Texas of Canada where I am. And so barbecue, ranchers, all the sort of stuff. So if you took a Texan and you popped them down right here where we are, you'd probably feel right at home. Although it'd be cold. It'd be a lot colder. We don't got the Texas weather, but we got the Texas style barbecue.
No.
So anyway, I call it that because it really resonates with me and it makes sense. Sometimes I like to use these metaphors or totally different comparisons or scenarios, and I draw comparisons so that I can go, I see how that applies here. So for me, the barbecue method is, you prep, you get the beef ready. You got to take time. It's all about time. And the more time you put into it, the better the end result, the better the end product. And if you're willing to put that time in and effort and do all these little meticulous steps and draw it out, the better the end result, the tastier it is. So when it comes to clients and specifically this checking if the project is right for you and lead scoring and qualifying, the quicker you go through that is kind of like taking a big hunk of beef brisket, throwing it on a grill and searing it and just putting the lid on it and cooking it in an hour. It's going to be awful. It's going to be tough. It's going to be chewy. All your guests are going to be embarrassed that they came over.
You're going to be embarrassed. Yeah.
You're going to be embarrassed. They're going to be, oh, this is so good. You did a good job. Wow. I really really didn't know brisket tasted like that.
Yeah.
Really,
Meanwhile, they're like feeding it to the dog and hiding
Yeah.
it in their napkin in their lap to chuck it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dog food. But
Yes.
when you take your time, it's just, you won't be able to get rid of the guests. And so
Yeah.
when it comes to the clients, you take your time with the sales process and you find out, who the client is. You want to qualify them. You want to have the conversations, then it gives you time to prep. Let's say your sales deck or your case studies, or you have a good conversation or you meet with them in person if you can. And that allows you to charge a higher price. And in the end result here, step all the way through from the beginning to the end of lead coming through the door to closing the sale. If you kind of draw that out in the right amount of time, you're going to get a really good end result and probably a client who's much more warm and willing to take the next step. I think that makes sense.
It does. I love the barbecue method. It speaks to my tummy. That's what it speaks to. It's good. Okay, so if we're going to do this barbecue method for a sales process, this is the sales process that I typically recommend for people. The first thing is you're generating leads. Generating leads through marketing, getting your name out there, meeting people, networking, all the things you do to draw awareness to your business. Once you get a lead on the hook, the very first thing that you do is you qualify that lead. This is like basting the raw meat. You're going to go, or this is like shopping for the meat in the store. You're going to go, you're going to kind of feel it. You're going to look at the freshness date. You're going to see, you're like, I don't know. Is this one good? Maybe I should choose this one because it has a little more fat or a little less fat or whatever you're trying to accomplish. You're going to go and pick the freaking meat. Now, this is the same as this qualification process. You're going to go and you're going to inspect the meat. You're going to inspect the meat. And how do you inspect the meat? That's what we're going to go over in the brunt of this conversation today.
Yeah.
But for right now, in this summation, inspecting the meat is just like a 5 or 10 minute conversation with the client to qualify them. That's your very first human to human touch point, oftentimes with a new lead that you get. This 5 to 10 minute phone call conversation or in-person conversation or Zoom call conversation. It is not email. Stop emailing your clients at the start. You got to build trust with these people. So get on the freaking phone and talk to them human to human. That's how you're going to build a trusting relationship. After this qualification, you're going to go into discovery. The client, you've got a good sense that the client is good. The project's a good fit. You know their budget's a good fit. You're going to go into discovery. And that can be a longer conversation where you go and scope the project. You're scoping it. And a lot of times in qualification, I'll say to the client after a call, okay, this is great. I think you're going to be a great fit. We would be a great fit to work with you. I think this is going to be spot on. Let's schedule a more in-depth discovery call where we can spend 30 minutes or an hour on a call and talk about all of the little nuances of what you need to solve this problem in your business or to create the thing that we need to create for you.
Yep.
So you transition to that discovery. That discovery is all about asking questions to scope the project. And then if at the end of discovery, the client is still seems like a good fit and you're like, I want to work with them, I want to do this project, then you craft a proposal, you present that proposal to the client, then you resolve their concerns, and then you land the project. That's the sales flow. And you can look at that and say, but that's way too long. That's too many conversations with the client. They just want to get started. And I hate that because it rules out this whole big thing in marketing and this branding strategy that you need 7 touch points with a client to convert them into a paying customer. This is branding 101. It's been shared for 80 years. This multiple 7 touch point idea. And slowing down the sales process like this gives you these multiple touch points with the client, and you're converting them little by little into a paying engagement.
Yeah. And
What are your thoughts on that, Brad?
Yeah, you got to be aware of the fact that like when we say these like 7 touch points and we're drawing out the sales process and you're taking your time with it, you're spending time with the potential client, you're you're buttering them up, but you're also trying to understand them. That's really the key here. You're not just trying to butter them up just to sell them and close the deal and make some cash and go. The more you understand them, the better your proposal, the better you can communicate and speak their language, the better the entire process, beginning to end. And so we're not saying do these 7 touch points and charge $1,000 for a website project.
Yeah.
Like that's not affordable. Like that's not profitable rather.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Now we're talking, you're doing this process and you're going to send a proposal for, $8, $15, $30,000. It depends at where you are in your agency. Now you might hear $30,000, $40,000 and go, oh my gosh, I'm not even close to that yet. Okay. Take this entire process we're outlining here. And let's say your average project is a $5,000 project. You can condense and productize that. You can streamline certain aspects of it. You can have, confined 15-minute discovery calls, so long as you have kind of a rubric to follow and standard operating procedures for this is how I conduct these calls. So I get the info, I give them the time that they need, I give them opportunity to ask questions. I know what I need so I can extract the key points and kind of distill it to its essential components. But then as your project budget grows and you say like, look, our close rate is, we did an episode on like the language of business is numbers and data. So if you come down and you do your data and your research and you realize my close rate is 25%, let's say. So, but our average project is $15,000. Okay. Well then like you can afford to spend time with each lead that comes through as long as you qualify them. And that's why that's what the qualifying part is. The qualifying is the difference between, okay, I got this AA meat here that I got from here at Costco or like Walmart, and it looks a bit tough and the expiry is tomorrow, so I'm getting a little discount on it. And here was the butcher, it's custom cut, it's sourced, it's right from a ranch outside here, it's AAA, it's well marbled. You can go, okay, I know what I'm going with, or I know what I'm going to reject. So qualification, spend a little time qualifying the client, and you might find out right away it's not worth going through step 2, 3, and 4 to milk that sales process. But you go, ooh, this is a potentially really good client. Yeah. Then you can move into the next step and really allow that process to simmer, marinate.
Go back to the barbecue. Go back to the barbecue method. Yeah.
Give that time.
Have you ever had a client that came to you with a budget, let's say a low budget, and you go through a longer sales process with them, and then out pops a bigger budget that you actually end up landing with the client? Has that ever happened to you, Brad?
I wouldn't say in such a clear-cut way like that, though I'd love to hear, if you have that experience. But I do know that I've had experiences with clients who start with an initial expectation of what they want to pay. And I kind of knew it was them trying to protect themselves from, me asking too much or something like that. Yeah. But I've had conversations where the client would say, we want to do this, and we only want to do a 1-day intensive with you. Yeah. I've had this before. And they outline what it is that they need. And I go, look, I get you're trying to prescribe the solution to yourself based on what you see my services are. Yeah. And okay, sure. Let's say I go your route and we book you for a day. It's going to be $2,500. And we do this one-off thing that you think you need. But you're telling me you needed this, and you're doing a course launch. Yeah. And your emails are over here, and you got this happening and this and this. Like, here's a couple options for you. We can book a day and I could do this. We'll pick the essential thing. I'll help you figure out what you need. And we'll do that in a day. But it sounds like you need all these other things. Mm-hmm. Might I suggest that we do a 1-week intensive and I tackle this, and this. Mm-hmm. By the end of it, all of it's taken care of. Now, granted, it's going to be more expensive than a 1-day intensive, but I'll leave it up to you. You get to decide. And so,
and has a client ever said yes to that? Where
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, where you slow down, you understand what's really ailing this client. They came to you wanting to spend roughly X, but by the end, because you've built that trust with them over time in your sales process, they end up spending Y. I've seen that happen a lot. Now, this does not work for you. If you want to keep cranking out $200 logos, then yeah, don't do a barbecue method for your sales process. Do the shotgun a beer method for your sales process. Is that a method? What's the other Southern method that you would have invented?
I would have said so you got the low and slow barbecue method, and you got the grilling method. So it's a hot fast.
Oh, the grill.
So you got a smash burger.
Fast. So shotgunning a beer, that's not on your
Mike's thinking of the college party days, but you could shotgun a beer while you're doing a smash burger. It's meant to be fast. If you ever cook smash burgers, it's like seconds.
So if that's what you want to do, and the objective is for the client, low budget, crank it out, get it done, then don't do a barbecue method. But my objective for you is slow it down and charge more. That's what I want for you. I want you to have more profit, higher project dollar amounts, a budget sufficient to actually do something that's going to make a difference in the client's business, not just crank out some design really fast and hope for the best. So I love this idea of slowing it down. Brad, let's go through what you would qualify a client on. Now, in my mind, there are 3 big components that we're going to qualify a client by. The first one is the client a good fit for us or not? Do we like them? Could we see that working with them? Is their business good? Is the industry they're in good? These kinds of questions. So is the client good? Yes or no? That's what we want to determine. The next thing is the project good? Yes or no? Is this something that we can execute on that's in our wheelhouse, our expertise, or we're capable of learning the expertise necessary to execute? Is the project good? That's the next thing. And then the final little component is the budget sufficient to do what the client needs to solve the problem that they want to solve? And we want to qualify those 3 things, and we can do that inside of a little 5 to 10 minute conversation with the client if we know what we're trying to ask and what we're assessing. So we're going to go through each of those quadrants and help you know what you're trying to determine when you're conversing with a client. And we're going to start with the client qualification. Is this client a good fit, like somebody we want to work with or not? That's the first thing. Now, what would one of the things be, Brad, that you would use as a qualification on whether a client is a good client or a bad client?
Okay. So if I'm like doing a checklist here, which I'd recommend if you're on a call, take out your notepad or something like that and check these off, create a little lead score. And so I would want to know how profitable, or maybe not profitable, what's the health look like for the business that you're talking to? Are they making good money? Are they really profitable? Are they just starting and they're on a shoestring budget? Are they pre-funding startup? Did they just get a huge round of funding? What does that look like? And I would say, if you were to simplify it and just say, like, is it good? Is it neutral? Or is it yay, neutral, or nay?
Yeah.
And if you did that, then you could do a really simple rubric, just being like, you got little 3 lines there, and you go, profitable, not really good. And then, so if I were to say, like, hey, so Mike, tell me about your business. Give me a little, paint me a picture for your business. How does it look? And then
let's do that role play.
Let's do that
role play. So you say that, and I say to you, oh man, well, I'm just getting started. I actually mortgaged my house to fund the startup of this business, but I believe in this business. And do you guys take Amex? Because I'm going to pay for my first deposit on Amex, if that's okay. That's my That's my response to you. So what is your assessment, Brad, of my client, of my business health when I give you that response?
I am going to respectfully hear what you're saying while I am checking down on the X, saying this is not a profitable or healthy business.
This is a risky situation.
This is a risk here. So I scored you on that. Now, now I'm gonna. This might be something I can answer myself, but I might also, ask you as well. This, you might be able to have this in the conversation. It would be like the relationship that you have with the client. So you might be able to score that yourself and say, I have no idea who this person is, but it might also be, I might say like, Mike, remind me, I like to ask my clients, potential clients on calls, like, what made you decide to book a call with me today? Where did you hear of me? Tell me, give me a little bit of that.
And I just did a search. I did a search on the internet and found agencies near me. That's what I searched for, and web design agencies near me. And I found you. You were like a few clicks down. I looked at your site, looked pretty good. So I clicked it and I gave you a call.
Cool. Okay. So I might consider that potentially like an organic referral source. It wasn't from a person, but my SEO did the job, a little bit informed of my services. So I'll give that like a neutral.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a +1. It wasn't a negative. It was like, okay, you're not plus or negative here. You're kind of getting by.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your experience with agencies like ours? Have you ever worked with an agency like ours? Tell me about that.
I've never worked with an agency before. I guess, my wife's cousin designed a logo. She was in high school and it was pretty good. Had a Pegasus on it and a unicorn and a ninja. So I thought that was pretty cool to combine a Pegasus, a ninja, and a unicorn all into one icon for my plumbing company. That's pretty cool. But that's really the only experience that I've ever had working with another creative agency or anything.
Excellent. Yeah. It sounds just like you were working with AI before AI was a thing.
Yeah, something like that.
Excellent. Okay, so behind the scenes talk here, your past experience with agencies, this lead that I am having a conversation with, I realized no experience whatsoever. So they don't have any sort of benchmark or frame of reference to know that agencies like mine tend to charge, let's say, minimum of $15,000 for engagements. So if you did Pegasus unicorn logo,
ninja, you got to add the ninja, man. There's a ninja in it too. Yeah.
But anything over $500 is going to give you sticker shock. So I'm going to give you a nay on that one.
Yeah.
Now,
Brad, I don't know why I'm going so negative on this client. Maybe I'm getting some emotional therapy while I talk bad.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
That's what it is. I'm like, this is a cathartic therapy session of me giving every possible bad situation that any client could have been. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is exciting.
All right. Okay. So that sounds good and everything. So tell me, I wanted to go back to when you found my agency, when you were doing some searching there about agencies near you. How would you, in your words, explain, your perception of our agency? What does it seem like we do? And what is your thought about that? It's
cool. I mean, it's cool because you guys can draw real good. I need somebody who can do some of that Photoshop. I need somebody who can do some of that Photoshop that I was reading about in a magazine. And I was thinking that that's what I'm really looking for. You guys know that Photoshop? You got that Photoshop?
I got to tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, I'm a straight talker, and I don't think we're going to work real well together. But I'm going to keep going.
Brad's going to end the qualification call right there.
I can't. You can't do that.
It's too much.
So
I'll dial it down a notch. I'll dial it down a notch and be a little more realistic in my responses. Otherwise, if you get to this point in the qualification conversation, just tell the client we're not a good fit. Yeah. We're not going to do a Photoshop Ninja logo.
And I've had that where I go, hey, you know what? I'm just going to stop you right there. I really appreciate you, taking the time. I know you have a busy schedule and I really respect your time. So because I respect your time, I want to make sure that we're on the same page here. what we do is kind of a higher end premium offering. We've worked with clients like Wix Studio, and we've done bigger engagements. We've worked on some TV shows, and I don't know if we're going to be on the same page here. The minimum engagement with us is, around $15,000 to $20,000.
That's it right there. I think, you price them out right then. You just, it's an easy way to move on from a client who clearly is not going to be a good fit for you. Just go right to chucking a price range to them, and they will self-select out. They'll be like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be that much. I thought that Photoshop was going to be like $200, and that's all I got on my credit card balance.
I have a friend down the road who said he'd do it for $250. Yeah, no, it's
$250. $150. I was hoping you could do it for $150 because my girlfriend, she can do it for $200. Okay.
Oh my goodness. I actually, I want to say though, I did this exact thing to a person I was on the phone with. And I went straight to the price them out strategy, like the kill switch where you're like, ooh, this isn't going anywhere. Client doesn't have the same expectations as me here. Like, I'm not even going to continue to waste anybody's time here. So I said, look, I just want to be honest right out of the gate here. I don't know if we're going to be the best fit. Let me tell you why. Yeah. Here's where you're at. Here's where I'm at. And I said, my minimum project for this engagement, and I can't remember what type of engagement it was. But I said, I don't think we're on the same page budget wise. And so then he stopped, and I was expecting him to go, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, cool. Well, I'll let you go. And I've had that happen. But he actually said, oh, well, yes, this is what it was. It was a website project. And he was like, I was like, what's your budget expectation? He was like, I don't know. Like, I was looking to hire someone for like $40 an hour. And I was like, okay, it's just going to stop you right there. I can't work with that. I'm going to be respectful of your time. I have a network of folks who will be very happy with that. I've been in business for 12 years. And I can't take on a project that's any less than $10,000 in this, what we're talking about here. And he goes, oh, okay. I think I miscommunicated. I didn't really know what you meant when you asked about the price and $40 an hour. Like, I thought, oh, maybe you'll work on the project for like 500 hours and the budget's going to work out. I go, also, I don't do hourly. And also, I don't quote you how many hours it's going to take. For me, it's outcome based. And it would be $10,000. And I'd get that done for you. And it would be done by, 30 days from now. And he goes, oh, great. Well, I don't care how long it takes. I mean, the quicker, the better. And I don't care how many hours, but that actually works for us. Yeah. Now, this project, it didn't go through. There was a number of factors that went in, but it went from this is a dud, like kill the conversation before it goes any further, to, oh, we're actually on the same page. We just were speaking a different language in that moment. Yeah. That can happen. I think that can happen. And it happens if prematurely we don't do the full qualification. Like we're right now halfway through a client qualification, the client, not the project and not the budget. So we're kind of through these first couple quadrants, and we're wanting to pull the ripcord and say we're out on this project. But wait till you see what happens when I start answering the rest of the questions relating to qualifying a client, and we'll proceed to there. I'm going to become a much better client all super fast for you right now. So far, I am really like, I got a pit in my stomach and I'd rather do anything else. So
I have a pit in my stomach. I don't even like who I am as a client. Like I don't even like myself. So it's not surprising.
We're going real deep today.
We are.
We're like working through some problems, I think.
I need help. Okay.
Well, let's help. Let's do that. Let's help go. Mike. Okay. All right. So I appreciate, your perception of us there. I just have a couple more questions, and then I want to see if we can get on the same page here. I want to just clarify a couple things. But I have another question for you, actually. When you reached out here, what were you hoping in terms of our engagement? Is this like a kind of a one-off project that you're looking to do, or what does that look like in the future? How do you see us working, 6 months, a year from now?
I have like 10-year vision on what I want this business to become. And what I'm really searching for is a creative partner. I know that I don't want to insource my marketing. I want to outsource it to some expert. And I want to build a relationship with an agency that can be my long-term creative partner. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So I don't know. Is that the answer to your question?
Yep. To those listening, that is exactly what I'm looking for, and fully threw a curveball in the right direction. So now I'm going to go to the next one and go, all right, yeah, that makes total sense. And I think we're aligned on that. Tell me a little bit about, since you got this big vision and you want a creative partner kind of for a longer term, what does your network look like? Who do you have behind you? Does anybody know about this project? Have you talked about this? Paint me a picture about your network and how that looks.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, this is actually the 4th business I've started. And so I have all of this infrastructure in place for everything but marketing. My marketing agency that I used for my other 4 businesses, they're no longer in existence. They retired, the owner retired. So I'm kind of left without my marketing partner that I had before, but I do have a Salesforce partner that I use. I have an attorney, I have an accountant, and I know a lot of other entrepreneurs. Like, all my friends are freaking business owners. So this is just the world I play in. I go golfing every Friday with a group of business owners, and I'm so jealous of them because they all have $100 million a year businesses, and mine, I'm just getting started. So I'm like embarrassed, and I'm super driven to kind of achieve what they've achieved on this business. My other ones were somewhat successful, but this is the one that I know this is going to be my big one. Because once we get the right ninja on the Pegasus, it's going to freaking rock, man.
All right. Well, I think we are aligning in this area for sure. I might have to revisit some of the earlier creative directions, but if you're looking for a long-term partner, I think we can help you out with that. What would you say your technical knowledge is? The tools that you mentioned Photoshop, you mentioned kind of these other things that you worked on. Do you have a lot of technical knowledge, or is that something that you're fully, you let go of? What does that look like for you?
I let go of a lot of it, but I have an admin that is on staff, and she handles all that stuff for me. So she's in the weeds of all of the Google Docs and Google Sheets and Salesforce and QuickBooks and all that stuff. She's been with me for 15 years, and I trust her implicitly. So she handles all the technical side of stuff. I can email and I can text and things, but when it comes to really being super technical, I'm not super good.
Okay. Well, you got someone on staff who takes care of that. So that sounds good.
Yeah. And she's awesome.
If you were to, this is a funny question for you. If you were to rate yourself on your communication, your communication ability, let's say. Now, this is just I'm just trying this out of nowhere here. So if you were to rate yourself on your communication skills from, great to neutral to not so good, how would you rate yourself?
I'm pretty good. I can spell. I can write. I can.
I threw you back.
I don't know. I got ideas, and I can share them with peeps.
Okay. Got it. Got it. You know what? I am good without any addition. You don't need to communicate too much at all with me. That's okay.
Let me share a little story in here. We had this one client. She was a client for a long time too. And I don't know how she got this name, but everybody called her the Sparrow. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because she was like dropping little crumbs or something, but her email communication was so bad that she would just send like these little 3-word emails in as feedback to a design delivery of some kind. And you would have to decipher what in the world she was even talking about. But we called her the Sparrow. We made a lot of money off of her, but it was a known failing in her business ability was that communication thing. That communication, it's so important to work with people that communicate well. And I do want to highlight that just because somebody scores low on one of these things that we're trying to qualify does not mean that they're out. You can have 3 or 4 bad client things and 5 or 6 good client things, and you may still decide to take on the client. One of these, it's not a 3 strikes and you're out rule. It's just about looking at this type of assessment of a potential client, and then making that intuitive decision on whether you should say yes or no. And some of these, I mean, already those first few, especially if a client answers that way in those first few, you're going to know that there's a lot of red flags there that you don't want to take on.
Absolutely. And I wanted to, you're right. You don't have to hit all of these and if they're all in the green, then that great. But you don't have to expect that. Now, if they're all in the red, then you kind of have a pretty clear choice here. But this is why measuring
Proceed
it and looking
at your own
risk.
risk.
Exactly. This is a risk analysis, really. So the last thing here I would say is, how excited would you be to work with this client? Do they come with a certain notoriety? Would they look good on your like brands I've worked with or clients we've worked with? Or if I get a case study from you at the end and I slap your logo on there, does that add to my business, take away from my business, or is it neutral? So I'm going to say in this case, like, you got a great network, but I haven't heard of the business, and I don't think anyone's going to be like super excited about it or mad about it or look at me weird. So I'm just going to give that a neutral. So what I'm going to do now is I actually put a checklist here. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty bright. There we go.
You did. Wow.
I did. I did a checklist.
He's already on it. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. You got a 4 in the nay department. 1, 2 in the neutral department, and 1, 2, 3 in the yay department.
Yeah.
So
good.
For me, now I kind of have, when I look at neutral, I go, it's not bad. So maybe I can consider that possibly good. So if I'm looking at, for me, I go, you have a 5 score towards, this is probably a good client match, and a 4 towards not so much. So I would say you're slightly even in the client match department. If I'm trying to qualify you as a client and working with you, I get slightly better benefit or slightly more benefit than the downside, but I can't totally ignore the downside. If I'm like the communication skills or the expectations of certain, if your business health is really bad, even if all these other things are good, maybe that's a deal breaker for me. So look at them and weigh
some of these
different.
can be just one bad thing on this category, and you may say, no way, that's the one deal breaker. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. So almost take that score and, look at them through your experience and go, maybe the benefit of a great network outweighs maybe their shaky business health, because I also heard that he has had lots of businesses, did an exit, an acquisition, large network. You know what? This is an entrepreneur and he's willing to take big risks. So this business is all on the Amex, but the other business, sold and did really well. So, you have to take that into account too. And maybe maybe something is a deal breaker for you, or maybe you're tapping into a huge network and I'm all in. That's a good match. So weigh these things, but you could look at this from a data perspective and you could determine, okay, is this a good fit? Is this not a good fit?
Yeah. I think that what you're highlighting there is that it isn't these aren't weighted answers. And you might have something like you got 10 things on the client business health. Is it good or is it bad? You got 10 things you're going to assess, but they're not weighted, because the fact that that you have a personal relationship with the client could weigh very heavily in you saying yes, even though some of those other things are a no way. But you value that relationship, and the client's not going to screw you, and you really want to help their business because they're your best friend, then you still might take that client on in that situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the client analysis, and we have that category of things. The next thing that we want to analyze is the project. Now, one thing I want to highlight here is that sometimes you don't ask all of these questions. Like an example, the communication question for the client. You might not ask that. You might just do that analysis yourself based on the conversation. And when they start their hillbilly talk and talking about Photoshop and all that stuff, then you may look at it and say, no, they're not going to communicate very well. They don't even know what they're talking about relating to this. I got to be aware of this client. So you don't have to ask every one of these questions, but you do have to analyze each of these questions. And some of them just come out in the normal correspondence. The client's business health, as an example, I can go to their website and I can see if this is a healthy business or not, typically. I can go to a store. I can go to an e-commerce site. I can go and know that this project is for Google. I know that they're a very successful business. I don't have to ask them, hey, how do you think Google's doing right now? I don't have to ask that in a client conversation. I can make that assessment without asking the question. So in fact, I would set as the rule, don't ask any questions that you can get the answer to a different way. Otherwise, you're going to end up with hour-long qualification conversations, and that's not financially solvent for your business.
There's certain questions that you should just infer. You can look at and go, I kind of know the answer to that, or I can infer some sort of like score on this. Yeah. So maybe we could do that, maybe without the role play, and we could kind of go through how you would then analyze the project aspect. So we got the client, but now how would we maybe lead score and qualify based on the project? And maybe some of these we can actually infer through just some of your research or a little bit of, poking around and just the conversation you've had.
Okay, so let's do that. I'll take you through what would I analyze a project, and you be the client on this one. Now, the first thing that I'm going to analyze is whether I'm a good fit to execute on this thing. Do I know how to do this? So, Brad, what is it? Or wait, let me say, Hillbilly Brad. What's your name? Hillbilly.
I thought you were.
Billy Sue, Billy Joe. What is it that you want to? Wait, now I'm being a hillbilly vendor. You're the hillbilly. What is it that you want to create on this project? What is it that you need for your business?
Well, Mike, let me tell you. I got a little story.
Hey,
for
that's
you,
way
Mike.
better than my accent. Yeah,
I told you that if I got brisket in me, then
then that's where you go.
That's where I go.
Okay. What is it that you want to create?
I'm looking for a software solution that goes behind the scenes for my lumber company. And we do lumber distribution. We have a whole operation going on, and our systems are really archaic. Works for us. We work on handshake deals a lot of the time, but we got a lot going on in the background. And we do a lot of our tracking of inventory and sales and distribution and all of this stuff by hand and like old spreadsheets. I'd like if that was a little bit more sophisticated and something that was easier to manage.
Good. Okay, now my analysis of this is, have I ever done a project like that? I don't know. I don't have to ask him anymore. I can just think to myself, okay, I've got 3 back-end developers. We build apps all the time. He's talking about kind of an operations management application, and I did 7 of those last year. All of a sudden I'm thinking, yeah, I can handle this. I don't need to ask more. I know that my expertise aligns with what the client wants. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to ask him about, or I'm going to assess his production knowledge. Hey, have you worked with an agency? Have you ever built out a system like that at this company or any other companies before?
Yep. It was back in the 90s, and that's what we still use. It's this old software. It works, and it's a little dusty and a little rusty, but it could be way better.
Yeah. Okay. I don't need to ask more questions about that either. I know that he has some understanding. He's been running his business since the 90s. You cannot be in business for that long and not have some level of production knowledge on how a project might flow. So I'm not going to ask any more on that. Billy Joe, what's the timeline that you want to get this thing launched?
If I'm being honest here, we are doing a big trade show in the summer. So 4 months from now, at the end of the summer, big trade show. Doesn't have to be done by then. But if it was, because we get a lot of deals and we get a lot of contracts through that trade show by come the end of the year. And if that was done by then or close handy about that time, I would be happier than a pig in mud, let's say.
Good. Okay. Again, I don't need to ask anymore. That response was enough. I can assess whether we can do it in that timeline, assuming normal production timelines for a project like this. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to ask about is the decision maker access. Hey, Billy Joe, who is the end decision maker on this? Are we going to be working directly with you? Will we have access to you for feedback and approvals along the way? Or are we going to be working with somebody from your team? How's that going to flow?
Well, any and all decisions at the end of the day come through me. So I will yay or nay whatever comes through the door and whatever goes out the door. But I don't want to be involved in too much of the nitty gritty and the minutia. That just drives me up the wall. So I want to make sure I'm working with somebody who can take care of it. We have a project manager who's very tech savvy and young and knows all this stuff. So we'll make sure that you are in direct communication with them, but any big decisions and final stuff comes from me.
Okay, perfect. Now, are you getting multiple bids on this, or is it just us, or is it open RFP? How many people are you looking at for a project like this?
Yeah, we put out an RFP. We did it by the book. That was advised by one of our staff members. We do it this way. So we've got a couple agencies who are bidding, and yeah, we're just weighing out the best option, and we're looking at what's going to be the best fit for us on a number of factors.
Yeah. Okay. One final question that kind of relates to these things is, you mentioned this trade show and getting it launched by then, and I think we can hit that timeline. I feel comfortable with that. But what happens if this does not work? Are you just going to use the same tools that you have now? Like, what's the detriment to your business? Are you looking for this to optimize your business and improve profitability? And if it doesn't play out in the timeline that you have in mind, is there an impact on your business, or is it just kind of business as usual?
Well, I don't want to be too proud and say, we're fine and we've weathered the storms before and we're fine and we got longevity and the old fashioned way is the best way. What I will say is that there are a couple, let's put it, a couple of young cowboys running some competitor operations. And though they don't have the experience and the grit that we do, they're pretty quick whips, and they got some nice technology and branding behind everything. It all looks nice and all of that. And it seems like they got a pretty tight operation. They don't have the wisdom that I do, but they're pretty quick. And so I'd like to make sure that this works. If it doesn't work, like we've went through some tough times before, but I'm going to ultimately end up trying to come back to the same thing because, like I said, these young cowboys, they got something good going on. I want to make sure that I'm not missing out.
Yeah. Great. And I'm not concerned about our ability to execute, just so you know. We did 7 of these projects that are very similar to what yours is. We did 7 of them last year. So you're talking to the right people. Sometimes trying to hit an accelerated timeline when we don't get timely feedback and information from our clients, those are the things that I worry about extending a timeline, not our ability to execute. If we were in a vacuum, we'd have this done in a month and a half for you. But obviously, we work with our clients as client partners, and we want them involved in the project so that it is what you want in the end. Okay. Now, the last thing, this is a little side note. The last thing on this category that we're going to analyze is whether this is a portfolio opportunity, because you can take on a project just because this is going to be an epic portfolio piece. It could fail on every other thing in this list, and you may still take it on because this is your shot to win the Webby that you've always coveted, or whatever award it is. This is your shot to win it. So you take it on anyway. So I always, in analyzing whether the project is a good fit, I like to analyze whether I'm going to be proud to stick this as a case study inside of my portfolio. I don't need to ask the client any questions relating to that. Okay, so now we have the project and the client analyzed, those two categories. We have one category left, and there's only a few things to talk about on that category, and that category is price or budget. And there are four things that I like to analyze. The first one is, how much profit potential is there for us? Because a project with high mega profit is going to be more appealing to me than a tight budget project with little profit. The next one is, does the client want to spend fair market value? Like, are they wanting to have somebody build out this entire operations application and they got a $5,000 budget? Or are they willing to spend the $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 that some other people in the market are going to charge for a piece of software like that? By the way, my neighbor works for a big company, and they just rolled out a software like what you're talking about here. And it was $10 million that they spent to implement this into their it was a global business all over the world, big brand that you would know, but it was $10 million to do that. So some of these budgets for something like this get crazy. Yeah. Okay, the next thing that we're going to analyze based on price and budget is the payment terms. Like, are they happy paying upon receipt? Are they going to pay an installment to get started? Are they comfortable with just a normal cadence of invoices? And then where is the source of their money? Are they funding it themselves? Do they fund it from a successful business? We got a little bit into that with clients' business health. Now, for the budget qualification, you really only have to ask one thing, and that is, hey, Billy Joe, how much do you have allocated to spend for this? Because some of these projects, like what you're talking about, can get pretty hefty. Do you have a budget in mind that you're trying to do this within?
Yeah, well, without giving you specific numbers, because I don't want to make it too easy for you. I like making people who are trying to do business with me sweat, but I can let you know that I am under no false impression that this is cheap. Yeah. And the operation that's going to be running on this, I expect it to work well, because there's going to be a lot of money flowing in and out of this. And this is really important to us. So we're not looking for some Fiverr operation. Yeah,
that's good. So like I told you, we did 7 of these last year that are similar. They ranged in price on the lower end around 150 grand. And on the higher end, one of them was close to $1 million in the budget for that engagement. Is that a broad range that you're comfortable in? Where would you say you are in the comfort on the lower end, mid-range, or the higher end of the budget like that?
I am comfortable with, let me say, any of those budget ranges.
Great.
The higher that goes, the more I'm going to expect.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that's all the information that I really needed at this point. What we would like to do next, I think this is a great project for us. We would love to work with you, really admire your business. The project is a slam dunk for us. And I know that we can create something price competitive for you. Not cheap. It's not a Fiverr operation, but price competitive. We're going to be in the zone of what other people with our level are going to charge in the market. We're going to give you a great product and a lot for your money. So I'm comfortable with that. Could we do a little discovery session with you? It's probably a 45-minute to an hour conversation. We would love to have your project manager on that conversation with us. We can just do it as a Zoom call, but we want to go into the details of what some of the features and functions are of what you're wanting to build, what you need this system to do. And then we can go and craft a proposal for you. Our proposal will likely have a strategy and planning phase as the very first phase, because a project like this has so many moving parts that we need to do an in-depth strategic approach and technical planning in order to execute successfully. So next step would be this discovery meeting. Could we get on a call with you and Sally Joe and review?
Yes, sir. We can make that happen.
Yeehaw! Sally Joe coming on the call. All right. Okay. So this is the process. Think of it as a Venn diagram. You got 3 circles. And in the center is the golden project, the golden opportunity. If the client is right, if the project is right, and if the budget is right, and you have enough of those things that are right in those 3 sectors, then it is a golden opportunity win. And like I said, you don't need to ask every single thing on a sheet. You can make some of those assumptions. There were 4 things we were going to assess about budget. We just asked 1 question and chucked a range to the client to gauge their comfort level in the price points that we might charge for something like this. You don't have to ask all of the things. You can just ask a few questions and deduce the rest. What closing thoughts do you have on this, Brad?
Take it slow. The low and slow, the barbecue method, that's really going to help you instead of speeding through it, because maybe you're uncomfortable with the sales. You might feel like it's an icky stage. Like get rid of that. Get rid of that thought. You make it icky. It's all you. You can make it icky or you can make it comfortable. And it's not, it's up to you whether you want to do that. And if you're going fast, you're just rushing through it. It's, to me, the same thing as getting a good, marbled cut of meat from the butcher and then throwing it on a gas grill and searing the heck out of it, and then slicing it up with a serrated knife and then calling it barbecue. It's a joke.
You're describing. So 2 steak adventures ago, I had my barbecue grill caught on fire. All my steak caught on fire. It was charred. I was so ticked because I spent a lot of money on my freaking steak. But now I only go to the butcher. I don't buy steak at the place that I bought it before. I only go to the high-end butcher, and I made some freaking ribeye 2 days ago that was to die for. It was so good. Oh, it was so good.
The quality, so sourcing good. The right meat, sourcing the right leads matters. So take your time, low and slow. Don't be scared of the process. Don't be scared of the sales process. Give it time to breathe, give it time to marinate, because then in that you'll be able to, 1, qualify the lead and the client and cut and run and get out of there. Maybe that client's all hat, no cattle, or it's a perfect fit. And that's the direction you want to go. And the client is more willing to pay a higher dollar because you've extracted the real problem and offering real solutions.
I love it. Good. Thank you. My very, very final little thing is that this qualification process is not a 1-hour meeting. You need to do this in a 5 to 10 minute flow. We took our time today because we gave you a lot of little insights and some hillbilly talk just for entertainment value. The reality in the real world, you get a lead that comes in 10 minutes. Go and ask a handful of these questions, make some assumptions, and gauge whether this project is a fit for you. Go back to that 3 buckets. Is the client a good fit? Is the project a good fit? Is the budget right? And if those things are all check, 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 then proceed to discovery and proposal and contract and land that project.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening to 2 Pixels Off today. We appreciate you. We've got some good reviews rolling in on our podcast, and we love that. So if you are listening to 2 Pixels Off and getting some value out of this podcast, please drop a review in your favorite podcast platform and drop a comment on the YouTube video version, and drop a comment on any of the Instagram reels and shorts and TikToks that we're posting relating to this as well. We love getting your feedback and knowing that there are people out there that are appreciating the show. We love doing it, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. And remember, don't squat with your spurs on.
Cuckoo! Yeehaw!